Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm Chives alongside my main man, Steve-O. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Chives. I'm doing great. We got a lot to talk about. First episode in a while where it's just been me and you. We got a lot to talk about. And for those of you who follow along recently and might have missed our last few episodes, in our last 3 weeks, we had three special guests, all fantastic listens. So go check those out. They're all still relevant topics. So go check those out. So let's talk some puck. Chives, this Rangers team fantastic. I mean, really, there's only one negative that I have, and I'll save that for later on in the show. But the vibe is like flying high right now.
Yeah, that dub against Boston was huge, right? I mean, Beast of the East, you beat the top other team. Like, the Bruins have been on top for a while. So, I mean, to win that overall, huge for the Rangers. Huge for the Rangers. It's been, really fun being able to get a lot of the uh a lot of the guys some extra interviews. It's pretty positive looks in the locker room right now, Steve. Now, I want to know what your thoughts are, like, who's your MVP so far? I know we talked about it for a little bit, but I want to know who your MVP is right now.
That's a good question. I have two-ish kind of.
Okay.
I have one main one, and I have one factor that you call it that you cannot ignore, and
Okay.
I have to go with Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick to me has been outstanding, and just take a look at his numbers. I mean, me and you, we constantly follow hockey these last 2 3 years. He's been on the decline, and he really hasn't had any. Maybe this one memorable run that he's had, and it was probably like 3 4 games at most. I don't think it was last year. I think it was 2021 with the Kings. But he's really been so inconsistent, and he really looks like he's dialed the clock back and he's turned it back. And he looks like Jonathan Quick from 6 7 years ago. I mean, really, when they were pushing, on all those playoff runs.
That Pittsburgh game, man, was everything. I feel like that's it. I mean, not only that, let's so the fact he was in against Boston, like we didn't even have Shesty in net. The Rangers had their backup in net when they took place of first in the entire NHL.
Yeah, and for me, that was a statement that he could go out there and he could beat the best team in the league. There's not a team in this league. You beat Boston, you could play any team in this league. And not even just him, as a Ranger fan and Laviolette too, you could fully feel confident in sending out Jonathan Quick against no matter if you're playing the Devils, you're playing the Hurricanes, best team in the league, worst team in the league, anybody, you could run them out. So for me, that's a big factor, and you really got to factor in that why I think that Jonathan Quick is an MVP up to this point is that nobody expected this. Nobody expected Jonathan Quick to come in, and the expectation wasn't really given to him, and even us fans too. I think it was clear that when Drury brought him in, it was going to be okay. Every 4 5 6 games, well, when Shesty needs a break, or we're on a 3 game win streak and we're playing a bad team here, yeah, we could throw Quick in. And you know what, the backup goaltender spot in this league is, or at least this team in the Rangers is not that big. And
Hmm.
Quick has proven that completely wrong here, and he's definitely one of my MVPs.
Would you start him against the Colorado Avalanche?
Would I start him over Shesterkin, or if Shesterkin's not ready to go, what's the circumstance?
I think that really speaks to if you believe he's an MVP. Like, the Bruins are the best team in the league, right? But I feel like the Avalanche were like last year, started kind of slow, but between the Makar, Taves, McKinnon, right? You name off all their stars. Would you start him against the Avalanche?
I
Jonathan
would.
Quick.
I would.
Yeah.
How about this?
Stick it to
If
your
I was
guns.
If I was Laviolette and I have Shesterkin healthy, obviously you have to roll with Shesterkin. He's our number one. But I'm fully confident if Shesterkin can't go or he needs a break, I'm fine sending him out there. I mean, he's been outstanding.
Yeah,
He
he's been
really
lights out,
has.
man.
He's been money.
Yeah, I mean, it started with that first game in Seattle, right? We've talked about it for a long time on the pod now. That was a long time ago. Like you said, we had a lot of guests on. We got a lot of insight. But listen, Ranger talk, I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm taking Panarin as my MVP. I think he flipped 180. I actually wrote about it just recently on the Hockey News. He said, so easy to say for you. He was like, it's so easy to say from the couch, shoot the puck. But he's finding that having a player like Lafreniere drive through the neutral zone gives him open space, and we're seeing how dangerous that is. I think you can you can't win the Stanley Cup without Panarin for this Rangers team, but you can win the Stanley Cup without John Quick. Where, which I don't even want to speak this into existence with the injuries, is if something happens, the fact you have Quick, we saw Shesterkin went down a few games early in the month. The fact you had Quick was huge. And the fact you could play him against big opponents is huge. Unless something happens, though, you're starting Chesty in the Cup final, right, Steve-O?
Oh, 100%. I'm saying
That's right.
more up to this point in the season, I think Quick's impact has been, I think he's what 6 games, and he's been fantastic.
Maybe
Even the
7.
nights where maybe 6 or 7. Even the nights where the offense wasn't really clicking, he still found a way to steal us 2-3 games. With
Mhm.
whether it was 2 shutouts or 1 2 goal game. So I gotta say, Quick. And again, Panarin's been awesome. He, I'm not doubting that. He's been our best offensive player this year for
Do you
sure.
think
And
do you think Panarin do you think Panarin or Lafreniere shocked you the most?
I'm gonna
I genuinely, I'll say Loff, but
I'm gonna
I
agree
wanna
with
know
you. I'm
your
gonna go
thoughts.
Lafreniere only
Yeah.
because I'm not doubting Panarin. Panarin has the skill. We know he's gonna get points every single night. I think for me, Lafreniere surprised me more because this was what we needed to attack and open up his game, and we've seen it. It's just
Mhm.
something that it's one thing to talk all off season long what the priority is, but it's another thing to actually show it and advance it. And after hearing so much talk in this offseason about Lafreniere, we needs this, he needs this, he's come out and he's proven it so far. So I'm gonna say Lafreniere because we know Panarin's skilled. There's no doubt about that. Again, we talk about it every
Mhm.
year as fans. So I'll go with Lafreniere.
You know what?
And I
I
got
wrote
one.
more than once, Steve-O. I said, I feel like when we used to watch clips of him from the World Juniors, like the way Lafreniere played there is what the fans have craved for years now. And it's starting to look like he looks like that player. And that's what's really
Yeah.
cool to say. Right? I mean, just the fact that I think when they drafted him, to be able to like everyone was like, imagine him with Panarin, and now you're actually seeing that is pretty neat.
Yes. And then I'll go with another MVP. It's not really a player, but overall, you have to give credit to this coaching staff and Peter Laviolette.
Yeah.
When you take a look at, again, I've watched almost all the games this year and almost all the games last year, and you compare, our team from last year to our team this year. Now I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, oh my goodness, our coaching staff last year really wasn't the best. When you're taking a look at, you got a system going, and even the players. You're in the locker room, you know the vibe. You could tell the listeners, who and me, who are not in the locker room every single day, but it kind of feels like players are buying into this system. As in terms of last year, there wasn't really a push, and there was kind of some you could sense a little resistance between some players. This year, Laviolette's got a system in place. It's clear the identity's coming and it's forming, and all these things we talked about in the off season that were lacking last year that needed addressing. So this coaching staff, again, you can't really put the coaching staff as an MVP, but of course
Yeah.
you got to give credit and a huge factor to why the Rangers are one of the best teams in the league right now.
Yeah, I think right, like the MVP is one guy that stands out, but like you're saying, the system's allowed like Will Cooley to have his moments, Jimmy VC to have his moments. Where I think VC, which we got to talk about the injuries, but with VC, he's played really well, depth guy. He'll talk a lot. Vincent Trocek filling in for Heedle's role, he's been phenomenal. I would say Trocek's actually been probably the best New York Ranger that's a I don't know if it's a surprise. I felt like when the Rangers signed him, it didn't seem like a big deal because they just came off of a conference final run. It was like, oh, you're kind of replacing Strom with like another 2C. That's a little grittier, right? But at the same time, a little more physical. But I love his game. The fact they've been able to get him into the top 6 and he's clicked really well with Loffman Panarin only adds to. I mean, they were all over the ice last night, and last night I didn't think the Rangers really. They had moments, but they weren't great. You're not getting that much from Mika. You weren't getting a lot from Kakko before the injury. You're not getting that much from Miller, but overall, they've had their moments, and I think you're right. the coaching difference is everything. I wasn't in the locker room last year, so I can't speak to that. One guy I also want to mention, Gus, man. Me and you talked about this all summer. Actually, we posted about it all summer. Like, I have faith that like you bring in a player that played in the coach's system before, they're gonna succeed, and the sky's the limit. Even though I do have people in my comments that are like, when Fox comes back, he's not quarterback in power play one. We saw it in practice today. Fox is going to be in that position. Gus is going to be on power play two. But I mean, he steps in and it looked like for 825,000, like that's how he played. Baller.
Yeah, you read my mind. I love we're on the same page. I was gonna bring him up next because he really has been, again, up to this point, knock on wood, but he's been a perfect complementary piece to this team and really what we kind of needed. And we've said in the off season, you could go back. We pin it because we said it. He was going to be awesome to this team, and he obviously meant a lot. Um, do you have any other possible potential candidates, even not for MVP, but still up to this point, or players that have been playing well, or even players that are not playing well that we need to see more of?
Stock up, stock down type. Well, I'll tell you, I think Crowder's actually, I don't think he's talked about enough. And I think this year I'm getting the vibe that he doesn't speak a lot or hasn't spoken a lot. So I'll say
When you
I
say
think
that,
he's a little more low key this year, just in that sense too. Like I feel like when he's popped off more recently in the second, kind of like the second half of his NHL career, I guess you could say, or that you really like, he's still got a few years on that contract, but um, yeah, he's not as much like in the face, but I mean, the two goals against Boston were huge, right? Like he stepped up in big moments when the team needed him. I think he's obviously lethal on the power play. He's better on the power play, I think, this year than he was already last year. The playoff series was phenomenal, but overall, like during the course of the season, he's having a very similar year to 21-22, where he put up 50. Um, and players will still wear the 50 shirt in the locker room, which is awesome too. That's just a side thing. But yeah, I think Crowder's hasn't been spoken about. I think for all the years he was panned for not being like a 50 goal guy or like a 30 goal guy, he stepped up in the last few years, and now that it's coming, it seems like no one's really giving him the praise after the fact. He's a really smart hockey player, and I've enjoyed watching him shorthanded. He leads the NHL in shorthanded goals the last few seasons. Obviously, power play goals, he's a lethal weapon, and the tip in. So, yeah, I think he's another guy. I would say he's another guy. I mean, Truba, too. I feel like Truba is another guy that for everyone who said something about his contract, he's been phenomenal blocking shots, throwing the body. I mean, you saw that game against Philly. He was just ragged on the flyer. So I would say those two. What about you, Steve? Anybody? I mean, stock down, I could talk of a few players, but
it's hard to pick a stock down guy when your team you got a top two
yeah,
three
yeah.
in the league. But I think I got one. Not Mika Zibanejad. Zibanejad I think has shown signs of improvement these last few games. I
Hmm.
think he's definitely going to be. Yeah, I think he's on the rise for sure. But if I had to give you one stock down guy, I'd give you Goodrow. I think he's been a little quiet down there, especially up to this point in the season. He's another guy that is going to kind of go under the radar since the Rangers are where they are. But if
Hmm.
we weren't in the position we are, he's one of the guys I'm circling in the lineup. And I would be asking, what's the expectation for a player like him? I
Hmm.
know that despite the rumors that the Rangers were maybe trying to get rid of him or dump that contract, trade him, whatever, it seems like he's going to be staying in this lineup, and especially with the injuries, 100%, which we'll touch on the injuries in a second.
Definitely.
And the lineup is going to be, I'm going to go towards my one negative, but yeah, I would probably go with um, Goodrow as probably a stock down guy, even though it's not major concerning, but his expectation and is definitely going to have to be, and his bar is going to have to be a little bit higher in the second half of the season. Considering if we're going to be down, one big player in our lineup, and who knows, Lindgren's been pretty good with the injury bug, so
Yeah.
I think the clock's ticking on that.
Yeah, I think you know what? I would say if I'm gonna go stock down, like Goodrow, yeah. Because you know what? I listen, they're the first team in the NHL, right? They're the best team in the NHL. I mean, Vegas can surpass them, but and so can Boston right now, but they're in that upper echelon. Like, which by the way, first and foremost, positivity. Let's look at this glass half full. Since the rebuild, the Rangers really haven't been the best team in the NHL. Like, even the year when they were hot under Dave Quinn, they were like fifth in the Metro. So it's been a number of years since they were back to that. Probably since 2015 when they won the President's Trophy. So we're talking a long time. Glass half full on that. Like, kudos to the fact that they are in that upper echelon. With that said, like, you don't need to change personnel. Of course, you're seeing in the comments section, trade Goodrow, trade Kakko for Line. Like, no, none of that's happening. Obviously now, but at the same time, like, listen, the stock down just means that they're not performing the same as we'd seen in the past. I would say Goodrow. I would say Braden Schneider, and I do think to some degree Mika. But obviously, like for a guy like Zibanejad, listen, man, if you're gonna take you're gonna take a little while to get going. They need Zibanejad in the postseason, right? Like that's certified. So if it's going to take until Mika March, take it till then. I know it won't, and there's ups and downs, but at the same time, like I don't think he's had a hot start by any means, right? He hasn't.
Yeah.
So I think the injuries affect that though, because Kakko's a guy that I think was stocked down, and now he's going to be out of the lineup for a while. He was placed on LTIR today. Filipino placed on LTIR today. Adam Fox returning. But you had a lot of this juggle around. Like Igor went down. Steve, what are your thoughts? Like if you were, it looks like Johnny B is going to slot in with Benino and Cooley. So what are your thoughts there? I like that they're keeping the fourth line together.
I like that too. Um, uh, I mentioned in the episode I do have one negative. I think the injuries um is a negative, and they
Yeah.
haven't really affected us, thank goodness. But how much longer are we willing to roll the dice and see? We were so lucky our best defender went down, and we really, not to say that it hasn't affected us, but I mean, I went on one of the longest winning streaks, that I can remember in a while in this franchise. So
Hmm.
I mean, we really haven't seen the impact of this. But again, the injuries are a problem. Phil Hedo, I'm concerned with for sure. I mean, this is one of the players that really Kakko last night. I mean, you get the sense that that's nothing you could put a band-aid on. That was a really a tough injury
Yeah.
to watch. So Kakko, I'm expecting he's going to be out for a while. But I mean, Hito's just he's definitely one of the guys. I mean, you saw it in Lafreniere so far. You wanted to kind of see that in Hito and get full circle, and then now you're sitting here with two out of the three kids, if you can still call them that. Um, is really stings, man.
Yeah.
Especially that was our main goal coming into this year, and Laviolette has sold me into what he's been preaching, and now we don't know when these two guys are going to be coming back. If I had assumed, we'll probably be getting Hito back before Kako. I would think for sure, but
Hmm.
remember Fox? We were like, oh, Fox is going to be out. He's going on a long-term IR, and look, he's back. He's going to be back already. So again, it's tough, but I think Kako is gonna be a big of a question mark. I do want to get into what the Rangers could do, but I want you to jump in and give your opinion first.
Yeah, I mean today, right? Like Kako LTIR, Heedle's been skating, but at the same time, it's just like, is this if it's concussion related, he could skate laps around the rink all day. It's a matter of, the physical game and being a full participant at practice or even joining the team with the red jersey. We haven't seen that yet. I think I'm more concerned for Heedle as a person, right? Like you saw with Eric Lindros. I know Crosby at the beginning of his career, like had concussion issues, and we know the nature of it, right? Like the health and the science aspect of concussions has taken drastic jumps because of the research that's gone in on the NFL with more head-to-head contact, but at the same time, it's translating to the game of hockey, and I think, yeah, it's more important. I think that he's healthy overall as a human being. But if we're talking hockey, yeah, Kakko's gone down, and I think the shame is just like you said, Heedle and Kakko. It seems like sometimes it's two steps forward, three steps back. Especially with some of the injuries, right? Like Kakko's had a number of injuries before. Phil Heels had a number of injuries before, and they're 22, 23. So, yeah, you don't like that for the young guys. But at the same time, like you said, Where my concern is organizational depth because like now you're bringing in Johnny B. Listen, he leads the AHL in scoring. He's an awesome guy. He's a root for guy. Like everybody can root for him. But after that, it's like who are we bringing up? You're not burning Brennan Othman's ELC. Even if I don't even know if the Rangers have room to bring him up, like with the cap situation. So I think that's a fear I had coming into the season a little bit was like you start losing guys, the depth on the roster is unreal, but past the roster, you don't have much. So right now it's like listen, you have one more big blow, what's going to happen? Because it seems like right now it's not patchwork, but it's getting to that point. We saw last year. Remember they went on the stretch where they had like a full like AHL lineup against like San Jose and Anaheim. This team, I think, can be coached to succeed, but it's the long term. Like this is a cup contender now. This is a cup contender now, Steve-O. I want to know your thoughts, like with how things are going for the Rangers. What's the point where you're really concerned? Like, are you concerned right now?
No, I'm not concerned right now.
Okay. Even with Kakko going down.
Yeah, even with Kako out, I'm not concerned. I think we have enough on this team to play and solidify. But even with Kako out, right now we're fine. The month of December, the month of January, we're fine. I think this, even with Kako in the lineup, I still think that Jury probably would have go out at the trade deadline and got a piece. I'm not
Yeah.
talking a major piece, but I still think he would have had to. Now, if Kako's going to be out, and again, we don't know the extent of this injury. Hopefully this is something that he could come back to. But again, based on what I saw, I'm not really, you know, I'm not really, really fully committed on that note. But
Hmm.
even with Kako out, this really forces Drury's hand to go out there and really get a piece at this deadline. I really think, again, Johnny, he's great. He'll slide right in, but I don't think that this is a long term answer for this Rangers lineup and where this wants to go. Speaking, we're gonna work. Listen, we're a cup contender. All the Ranger fans. Listen, I read all the comments. Everyone's like, "We're back." I don't think we
Yeah.
were. I don't think we were gone in the first place. I still thought the expectation even after letting Gallant go and bringing Laviolette in, I still thought from the beginning, and I said it here on the podcast, and I know you agreed, this was still a cup contending team. And now we've kind of taken strides to be one of the best teams in the league. And
Hmm.
frankly, I don't think we'll know until like another month and a half who the best team in the league will be because I
Yeah.
all the teams in the top 10 right now they're all within 4 points of each other. So we got to
Yeah.
play this thing out before
Like Vancouver.
Vancouver
No
or
one saw that coming. No one saw
exactly.
that coming.
Like, yeah, there's a couple teams in there. Like Washington's in there.
It's
As
it's really painful. Yeah. Washington, like no Nick
not
Backstrom.
top
They're
10,
all
but
aging.
they're lurking. But you got the Kings, you got the
Kings
Stars.
are legit.
Kings are legit. Obviously you mentioned Vegas, Colorado, Boston. How about Winnipeg? Winnipeg's had a good year up to this point, and the
Hmm.
team that just got Patrick Kane, the Red Wings, I think they're in the top 10 if I'm not mistaken. So again, there's a lot of teams right now that are within 4 to 5 points of being number one in the league. So again, until we can sit here and say we're the best in the league, we gotta let it play out.
All
But
right,
as of
Steve,
right
real
now,
quick, actually, I got to ask you
go ahead.
this. Red Wings signed Patrick Kane for 2 mil. All right, for 1 year contract. With the Kakko situation just unfolding, I need to know quick. We've beaten this horse has been long dead. Would you have wanted Patrick Kane back now? Because you said the deadline, but like, if you could have signed Kane, would you have signed him for 2 mil? I don't
Yes,
think anyone really expected that.
yes, I would. My answer kind of changes now that Kako's out.
Down, right?
Yeah, I would say yes. Now, again, the cap might be tough with this team, but I would probably say yes. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I don't think they actually. It's crazy because we're talking about pinching pennies so bad that like I don't think the Rangers could have signed a player to a $2 million contract. But with that said, I mean, like, would they have made it work if they had like if the timing was different? Probably. I would say, right? Why would you not?
Yeah,
It,
you have to say yes. I would.
right? Like Wheeler, he hasn't. Something tells me. Johnny brought this up yesterday at the game. I would like to see Jimmy VC on the first
Me
line with
too.
Mika and Kreider.
Me
Yep,
too.
I think he's a dog. I think he would complement them really well. and it might get him going, and it actually might allow Wheeler to get going a little more. Like, I don't think he's a player. Like, I don't think Blake Wheeler needs to. At this point, I don't think he's the Blake Wheeler we even saw last season, 2 seasons ago. But I do still think like if you could get moments like that, that's big. Okay,
Yeah, and
would you
especially
agree?
I agree 100%. I agree with you on, and if Johnny said that, I agree with him as well with moving VC up. But again, to me, that's a short term solution. That's not a viable option if come playoff time. I still think we're gonna have to add somebody.
Yeah,
Um, and
but
for the
you're in a lot better of a spot because they move
oh,
VC
sure.
up. They move VC up with the second line last year, and their answer was bringing in Kane and Tarasenko because the kids were kind of not ready yet. So they kept the kid line as a checking line. This year, it's like all you really your second line set, and they're an engine. So really, it's just about like finding a complement to Kreider and Zibanejad, and I think they take a little more of the responsibility on the defensive end. But Laviolette will say like a lot of the second line success is how they're able to break out and play defense in their end. But with that, I do think it'll be interesting because again, like I don't think Nick Bonino should be the 3C come playoff time.
I
And I
agree.
think that has to do with Phil Heedle. Like when he comes back, where does he go? Some people say if Phil Heedle comes back, maybe put him in with Kreider and Zibanejad. He's played wing before in the NHL. Why not try it? He's got the speed. Let him get comfortable on the wing and then move him back to center when they can really adjust things. But I also want to pitch that your way, Steve-O. Heedle at the wing.
First of all, I want to get him back, but I'd be open to that
Yeah.
for sure. I would like to see that. These are all
Right.
good
Like
ideas.
whatever works. You're the best team in the NHL.
Exactly. And listen, listen, even if we're not the best team, we've bought ourselves time now. We can afford that 1 week, 2 week bad stretch. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
saw with the Devils last year. I mean, Devils after going on that, historic win streak, if you want to call it that, they there was points where they struggled. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, we're gonna reach that point at a season where we're gonna feel like, oh, we're at a roadblock. I mean, it's coming. I mean, when you're this good, you can only kind of go down from here. And I'd expect a losing streak at some point in the season. You would have to, but even with this Kako injury, this puts more pressure on Blake Wheeler. We need him to play. How about this, Tribes? We need him to play up to the expectations that we all gave him in the offseason. And w- I will give Blake Wheeler until 2024 mid January before he needs to start showing results leading up to that trade deadline. He really didn't need to, step up and to start the season so far. But if Cock goes down, and listen, I kind of agree with you. I think our bottom six in a Stanley Cup playoffs, if we're truly going to be a cup contender, I not to say that I'm not confident, but I don't look at our bottom six and I say, you know what, that's a Stanley Cup winning team right there, the bottom six. So
Really?
yeah, yeah, I
Well, all right,
think
Steve was keeping it straight up. I think so. I think this team. I think it's a little unproven. I would say unproven, but I do believe in Will Cooley. I mean, he's a standout on that third line. I don't think Nick Bonino is great as your like. I don't think he should be the 3C, but that fourth line, I think they're generating a lot. I do have faith. I have more faith in the bottom six this year by miles than last season.
I agree with that.
If we're
I
gonna go
agree with that
there.
for sure. I
Um,
think the last
I didn't like Kakko really on that line, and I know it's kind of like where do you put him because he wasn't producing and he wasn't really playing top six, with Kreider and Zibanejad well. But also, it just seemed like a weird misfit. And then Heedle goes down, so now you move Trocheck up and you have Benino. It's working, right? Like no complaints. I just thought it again. Like you get into I don't know though. Like who knows? Like me and you could be talking about this right now, and they win the Stanley Cup with Nick Bonino as their 3C. Who cares, right? Like at that
yeah.
point. So I do find that with Ranger Land, they'll complain about anything, man. But at the same time, I do have to say we might not see eye to eye on that, but I do see where it's coming from because there are small things that I'm not the biggest fan of.
And listen, I'm not panicking. Like I think right now, I think we're fine. Right now, I would not change anything. Maybe minor changes, moving guys up here and there, but for the most part, I think right now we do nothing. I think we're fine. I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm talking 4 months down the line. Come April, come May. I'm just trying to foreshadow. But as of right now, I'm not panicking. I think we're fine right now. Like I'm trying to envision what the future is gonna look like, and the truth is, it's hard, because who knows? God forbid Mika goes out for 2 months. You don't know. So as of right now, I think we're okay, but I do think for sure the Rangers will definitely have to be active at the trade deadline, and it's probably going to be similar to last year, not in where we're bringing in big assets, but more like we're crunched, and our options are limited because of our cap space and our resources too, because we got a lot of chips down there, Chives. We ain't giving them up for crap.
No, that's right. We got a lot of chips, little blue chip tech. But I will say where I do agree with you. It's not going to be like last year. It's going to be like trading a fourth rounder for Frankie V. We need a dog like that. And I'm not saying not Frankie V at 4 million at Anaheim now. I'm saying a guy that's like that. A guy
Yes.
that's a complimentary, can play defense, can play some special teams. That's what I loved about Andy Kopp and Frankie V, man. They were just phenomenal in that respect. Like, okay, so maybe you gave up like a second round or maybe a B tier prospect, but like you got a guy for the postseason run. I love that. I love that. Listen, it didn't work last year. Didn't work. They lived in. I got to give it to Drew. He lived and he died by it. I think he saw that this core does have some time together, and I think he said, "Hey, listen, we got these stars. We're gonna see if it works." It didn't. All right, so that formula doesn't work, right? Like you went for it. You went for it and it failed. That's life. But I will say I do agree with you on that. Now, something I will say will be missed is Capo Caco's puck protection. And I think it's something that's overlooked, right? The points, nothing special. But at the same time, you got to give it to him. His game is very unique. And I don't think you're going to call up a guy that's just going to have. No other player really has that skill set, not only in the system, but like the whole organization. So I do think that's going to be missed. And I actually do think that might play in his favor a little bit is when you start seeing some things like, oh, like, man, Kako was actually creating some offense when he was on that third line. I will say that. And the other thing I will say, I do miss Phil's juice, man. Like I feel like
Yeah.
because we've been talking about it, he's got that scoring touch. He's got the speed. Like, man, they do miss him. And it's funny because the team's succeeding, but imagine when Fox is held. Like Keandre Miller said it. It was an awesome quote. He was like, I think it's scary and fun to say that we don't like. There's still better hockey for us to play. It's true. I mean, Phil Heedle's he is just lights the lamp, and Adam Fox won the Norris 21. Like he's our guy. So I do think the sky is the limit right now, and it's a shame because like I think now it's like that waiting game. We don't know what's going on. Fox returns Wednesday, but even that took the month since that November 2nd game.
Yeah, he might need, a week or two to fully be accustomed and jump back in
Yeah.
and fit along with the system. I'm not
He's looking
concerned
good.
about that. That's good. I've heard he was looking good, so that's good for sure. And you take a look at our upcoming games. We play the Red Wings, which we played them like a week or two ago. We smacked them. They're home this time. We play the Preds, which this time I believe we're going to be on the road. We get another chance to make up for that debacle of a game earlier in the year.
I feel like the
And
Rangers, I wouldn't say they had that one blowout win, but I feel like the last few times they played Nashville, it's been like gritty games.
me too. I think, beside from the one this year, I think two out of our three games that we played from them last year and even the year before, I think we smacked them in two out of three. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but no, I remember we killed them in a game
Yeah,
at
that seven
Edmonton.
goal, like it was like
Yes,
7 shots, 7 goals.
yes.
But
Um,
they play the Rangers pretty physical, so that could be like one of those. You know what? I think they play a back to back, right? It's against this
San
Predators
Jose.
on the road, and then against San Jose. Like one of those is going to be a stinker. You hope it's not San Jose for the headlines, but
if we lose to San Jose,
Listen, they carved out a pretty good win against the Caps, man.
true, but I think we're on a different level in the Caps here. But man, San Jose, I don't hate them, but they showed a little bit of life here. This last week and a half playing a little bit better, but they are they are as down bad as you could get in the National Hockey League to start the season.
Tanking for Celebrini. They want him. They want him. You know what the shame is? I was thinking about this with the whole. I know we were talking about this before. I don't want to talk too much about it. Corey Perry deal right now with like the Connor Bedard. Like they they really were so bad last year because I think they thought by the end of the year like they lost like 10 games in a row or something. I don't know the exact number, but like Eric Carlson won first of all, he won the Norris Trophy on that team. Like I feel like in 5 years from now, we're gonna be like, how did that happen? And then the second, like I think they really were pulling for Bedard. It's such a shame, man, because I don't know. I have this feeling like they're gonna be terrible and they might not get the first pick again. That would be crazy.
You gotta feel bad for them.
Yeah,
As
I
long
mean
as we
they
don't
just
lose
have
to them.
nobody. You know what? They rebuilt almost to like they tore down to the point where there's like nobody, man. Like they thought their NHL kind of like, all right, they'll compete guys. We're gonna be like Duke, Zadina as a reclamation project. Like I don't really know what was going on over there. I don't
And
like when the Rangers rebuilt. I know it was a turbo rebuild, but they still had guys like 2018 was 19 was rough. That was a rough year for the Rangers. Rob O'Gara, like that era. Ryan Sproul, like AHL level. And listen, no hate on that. Like I'm sure they're good people. But actually, Rob O'Gara won the Natty against Quinnipiac in 2013 with Yale. They still had NHL like guys like Mika, Kreider, Zook, and they traded Zook, but like they still had some guys that could like play in the NHL. Booch, Hayes. The Sharks have nobody, man. Like it's like like Ferraro, Zadina, who's now out, Duclair. Like I don't know what they're doing, man. I don't know.
hey, put this puts the league into perspective for you. How about this? I believe the Oilers are only 3 points ahead of the Sharks, and the Sharks are in last place. And how about this? Oilers bring in our guy. It's not
Chris
seem to turn
Knobloch.
things around. Yeah,
Johnny
man.
B today, Johnny Brodzinski was saying he was happy for him. He said the new coach Smith is actually really good for the Hartford Wolfpack. Like he really likes the way he does have like a great control of the
That's good.
locker room and everything. But yeah, Knobloch was the guy, man. I mean, he brought the Wolfpack to the third round against the Hershey Bears, who won the whole thing last year.
Yeah, but let's be honest. There's a big difference between coaching the Hartford Wolfpack and the Edmonton Oilers.
Well,
And
listen, there's something that like I actually want to talk about Connor Brown because they thought he was going to be like this 30 goal guy that they're going to bring in and reunite with McDavid because they used to play together with the Erie Otters. I think under Knobloch or maybe Knobloch was prior to that. Listen, I'm in Rangerverse right now. I gotta start expanding my horizons a little bit. But from my understanding, that was the whole point. Like the Rangers haven't done anything like that, which I think is going to be key when they assess what they need with free agents or maybe for like plugins for the lineup is like, man, don't go that route. Like, oh, this guy played with this guy and he's kind of like, I mean, Connor Brown, I forgot he was like peak with the Leafs and then like I don't know where he was until they decided to sign him. So yeah, just like the Oilers, they got like they mortgaged their cap in players like Nurse, Dreisaitl, who looks like half the nights he doesn't really care to be there. McDavid, who's the best player in the NHL. Actually, Pagnota on the Blue Crew said he's from the fourth period, which is like a big website. He was saying that it would take like Panarin and Fox and like plus Lafreniere plus to get McDavid. Like it's a no go. I was like, ah,
I would
man,
never do that in a million years.
no,
No, I
no.
know a lot of Ranger fans would. But
He's like a. I feel like yeah, that's man. I wonder. I wonder if it would be cool for the NHL if McDavid was at Edmonton. I mean, Wayne Gretzky. Yep. Listen, even Wayne Gretzky was traded, baby. And everyone like, oh, but it was the owner. Like, but Steve-O, listen, we've seen stranger things happen. We've seen Odell leave New York. We've seen Devontae go to Las Vegas. We have seen it in our time.
we saw some last year with Chuck going over to the Panthers.
I
So
remember everybody, Steve. I remember that night. First person I messaged, man. Like the Flames are just mid. Like they're literally like collapsing. Like Zadorov asked for a trade. Like they were supposed to win that trade because they got Uyghur, they got Cole Schwint, John Huberto, who had the I think like largest decrease in like point percentage in history in the NHL history from one season to another. That's sad, man. You know why it's sad? Because there's no excuse. It's not like, oh, he was unhealthy or like, oh, you know what I mean? Like something happened. Like he just fell off. And they first blamed what's his name? Friggin' coach Sutter. Daryl
yes, yeah.
Sutter. And like they changed the coach. Meanwhile, Florida, and I said this beginning of the year, I had faith in Matty T, baby. Faith in Matty T. Florida's again in a good position. Everybody had them written out because Buffalo, Detroit's playing all right. They have some stay power, but Buffalo and Ottawa just they're not getting it done. I think Tage is injured too or something. So, but I
Yep.
mean,
How about the? I know we just had Christy on. How about
yeah,
the Devils? The
yeah,
Devils are not doing that well. They're kind of
no,
stinking it up. Chives, I believe they're getting close to that bottom of the league. You know,
yeah, Steve. The one thing I say though is it's almost it's December basically, right? Like I feel like the Rangers last year, I'm sure their opponents were saying the same thing. Jacob Truma helmet toss era. Like the Rangers were bad at that point. Like they were losing to Chicago 4-1 in that game when he threw the helmet and they still lost. Or maybe like 3-0. Like Trouba was trucking people every game to try and get some juice in the team. You know that. You know that. Anyone who listens knows that. So the reason I'm saying that is not, I guess, devil's advocate to some degree. Like I feel like it's the chef's kiss of death because Pittsburgh and Mike Sullivan does it every year. You know what I'm talking about. They come around, they get hot in April, and then they make the playoffs. So I don't know. I, I feel if I speak into the mic right now, I don't want it to come back. I don't want to have to go to the Prudential Center to cover any games in the playoffs. Okay.
listen, I have no doubt. I just wanted to bring it up. The Devils will turn it around, and I'm 100%
Well, you know what? You got to say they were missing a few guys, but the
confident.
excuse last year with Laviolette was like, oh, the Capitals kind of fell apart because they had injuries. Oh, the Devils were without Jack Hughes for 2 games because he was nursing a stub pinky toe, and Timo Meyer was out. Like, you know what? En- enough. The
Yeah.
Rangers, I love it. There's no excuse. They're just the system is working, it's in place, and they're succeeding with it.
No quit, baby. No quit. Last thing I want to bring up before we end it off here. We don't really jump in. I know the last few weeks we had special guests, so we didn't really have to, recap, all the other teams signing the Rangers. But how about the Lightning, man? This is one team that we were talking about in the beginning of the year that really like they might be falling off. They're in the top 10 and they are still a dog out there. I think so.
Yeah.
So I
No,
don't
no Stamkos for us. Remember, I was big on that. No
clip
Stam.
that.
Zook, though, I think Minnesota's like Dean Evison just got fired in November. I don't know if I've ever like I shouldn't say that. I just don't recall the last time like a guy's been fired like late November, early December. I feel like that's an odd time because it's like there's still a lot of season to go, but also like the whole Thanksgiving. If you're in a playoff spot, you're gonna make the playoffs. So I don't know. Like I feel like that was weird.
Yeah, and to me, they're in the same boat as the Oilers. I think the Oilers are a little bit better than them, but coming into the season, they were on the same level. They both had high expectations as a to be a playoff team and a cup contender, and
Yeah,
they both found themselves in the same positions. Poor performance all across the board. Coaching's not been there. Both players on both teams really frustrated, and I think they have the same record. I think they're sit. I think it might be the Sharks, the Blackhawks, and I think it is the Wild and the Oilers. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that's how it is in
same.
the standings. So I guess they both needed a shakeup.
I'm a big original six guy in the playoffs. So like 2013. Listen, don't get me wrong. Expansion this, expansion that. Winter Classic Seattle. By the way, told you they were gonna fall off. Oh, told you they're gonna fall off. I do hate being that guy on the podcast. Like when people are like, I told you, like nobody knew it was gonna happen, right? Nobody. But at the same time, said that one. What was I even saying? Oh, original six in the postseason, man. I love it. Like the more of those teams, like if we get Detroit in the playoffs with Patty Kane, awesome. I love that for the league. Toronto, Boston, New York,
How about this?
hell,
If
maybe
we
Montreal.
if you're telling me we're playing Detroit in the playoffs, I'm signing that right now. I'll take them in the playoffs.
Oh, Steve with a big call.
How about
Okay.
look?
Little
Hopefully,
wild card tech. You know what? That you might be onto something because if the Rangers are the first top team in the Metro, like they could play a wild card team that's in the Atlantic.
listen. If that's our opponent, papers are signed. I'm signing that right now. Listen, we play them up next tomorrow. I don't want them to prove me wrong here, but listen,
Yeah.
I'd take them any day.
The Isa plan. I haven't had the privilege to run into Steve Eiserman yet. I'm
Well,
scared. Scared.
you get the chance. That's an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, he seems like a hard MFer, man. Like he seems like rock solid. Like I don't know, there's something he's got a vibe, man. Like Stevie Y. I mean, I said it before. I felt like the Iser plan was falling off the tracks, and then he turns it around and gets Patrick Kane for 2 mil. Granted, I mean post hip surgery.
Yeah,
You know,
again, we don't know what to expect from him,
it's
and
not Showtime Kane.
yeah, I don't think so.
But
And
like, bro, you know what I was thinking, which is weird.
actually, you know what? Have that thought. I have something to say, but go ahead.
Patrick Kane goes from he leaves Chicago, he plays for New York with Artemi Panarin, and then he's like, "Where do I sign? Maybe I'll sign in Toronto," and then ends up with Alex DeBrincat, his other line mate, post Panarin. I think that's pretty funny. He ended up with two of his old line mates.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna change my answer. Do I take Patrick Kane? No, I do not. I will not take Patrick Kane. I'm gonna switch
Oh,
my
Steve
answer.
O's getting
How
fickle
about
now.
that? Little debate here at the end, but no, I'm not gonna. I just to me, it's rolling the dice and a gamble. You know, coming off an injury, this is a big injury, and again, he's past his prime. Showtime is just quite frankly, you don't know how many more Showtime performances you're gonna get. So it's a gamble. And you know what? You brought up Frankie V, and I'd rather Drury go out there and get a similar player. Again, not going out and getting the skilled player, going out and getting that speed, that quickness, somebody that could forecheck, somebody's got that grit, a Frankie V type of player. I'd roll the dice and go. And you know what? I'd change my answer.
He seems like Patrick Kane seems like the apple in Adam and Eve right now. Like it's tempting, but in the
Oh
long run,
man,
man, come on,
that's an
don't eat that
awesome
apple.
analogy.
Don't you take a bite out of that apple.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want to sit here and take that risk and take that gamble because it looks like we're flying high right now. I
Little
think there are
armchair GM.
better. I think there's better options.
I wonder who it's gonna be. I really do. Cause I genuinely, Frankie V, man, I can't believe I talk about this guy once a day. I mean, just you had to be there, right? You had to be there to witness Frankie V. He was phenomenal. I mean, I was
Was
thinking about that goal today, driving home from the facility. The one timer on the power play where like he just snuck in backside and ripped it home against Carolina. That's the stuff that dreams are made of. I mean, come on. You
if
get
you're
that's a guy it's we're not bringing him back. We don't have the cap space, but
oh
that's a
yeah,
guy like I wonder who it's gonna be. Like, who are we trading a fourth rounder for? I don't know. It may never happen again.
gonna be a guy that no one's expecting,
Yeah,
or Tyler Mott for the third time.
we're not. Tyler, I was gonna say Tyler Mott from. No, you know what the killer is? The Rangers are gonna play Tampa for the 900th time in the conference final, and he's gonna score like a game winner against them, like Game 5 backbreaker.
That
Somehow they're gonna get Andre Palat onto the team just for one cup run,
that's the most Ranger thing to happen.
right?
I wouldn't be surprised. That's
Oh,
a Ranger thing to happen. That and of course, the other Ranger thing, going back to the middle school days, getting called but and getting screwed by these refs.
yeah, the officiating's been interesting. I can't believe
Yeah,
we
man.
didn't touch upon that last night. The hand pass, the Pitlick interference was very questionable. I mean, some of the
I swear these refs got to screw the Ranger button, and
in Toronto.
they're putting on the shelf for later on in the season. Which again, that's the other thing that worries me. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, listen, Steve, what was today? November something, November 28th.
28.
A lot of season to go.
Sure, and I think we'll be fine starting this week. We got the Wings, we got the Preds, and then we got the abysmal San Jose Sharks. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me at this point next week. But
That's got like this Buffalo game to me. That's got like New York Ranger, like I don't know, the Buffalo game was pretty bad. Like you lose Kakko and then you like Alex Tuck just owns you twice. I mean, even Paterka has like a 5 game goal streak against the Rangers. Like, what? Like,
what?
where does this stuff come from? So yeah, that was like a very Ranger loss, but I don't know. This San Jose one has got me thinking. Like, if they're in Nashville the night before, I don't know. I mean,
Oh my
granted, it's not like old time NHL Stevo. Truba would have been out at the bars like in
god.
the 80s. He would have been like ripping a stove and putting down beers and with a cowboy hat on Broadway until 2 a.m. But now, it's just a different scene. So I think it's really more about the travel time and the wear. Like these guys are professional athletes. They're not just professional players. You know what I'm saying?
I'll ask you this one question before we wrap up. 3 games, Wings, Preds, Sharks. Who scares you the most?
So the Red Wings have bias. I'll keep it a buck, as if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo. I would say the Red Wings. I got biased. Like I think the Rangers are just gonna 4-0 them like they did last. Was it 4-0, 4-1? Maybe it was like 5-3
5
last
3,
time.
5 3.
5-3. Ping pong ball kid Loffen the Breadman had an awesome game against them. But like for some reason, I think that's gonna happen. In my mind, it's just like that was like 2 weeks ago. Been running. Like Red Wings 5-1 or whatever it was. I feel like this game might be different, might be closer. You know what? No, there's also no more Jimmy Howard. Remember that guy owned us.
Yeah, you're
um,
right.
he's the Red Wings. I think are obviously the most competitive team. I think they're gonna play, but I think Nashville can be. I'll say just to speak on the opponent's behalf, like I think Nashville can be sneaky good. Like that guy Tommy Novak, he could pop a few goals on us. Every time we're in Nashville, it seems like it's kind of a tight game. Um, and the only reason, like, obviously, I'm not concerned with the Sharks. I'm concerned with the Rangers coming off of the back to back. That's really where it is. What about you, Steve? I'm gonna say Detroit easily, but I would say that's my case for the 3 teams.
Who scares me the most? I'd probably say the Red Wings.
Yeah.
I think out of the 3 games, that'll probably be toughest. If it makes you feel better, I believe the Sharks will be coming off a back to back Friday, Saturday too, just like us. So they'll be playing the Devils when we play the Preds. So they're in the same position as us. So that makes me feel a little bit better. And when you think about it, man, we're just on a different level. So man, I really hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but the Sharks don't scare me.
Oh man, we're gonna have to if that's
I'm
the
gonna put a
case.
paper. I'm gonna do the next episode next week with a paper bag on my head if the Rangers lose to the Sharks. But
Listen, I'm gonna hold you to that.
you'll see with my 2 eyes. But that'll wrap us up here on this episode of Puck Talk CS. Back, it was great to sit here and talk to you after great lineup of special guests these last 2 to 3 weeks. So again, go check those episodes out. They are amazing listens. We really had some fantastic special guests. So go check us out, of course, on all platforms. The YouTube, we've been pumping out content on the shorts, the Instagram at Puck Talk CS. LGR, everyone. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.